You're still watching the AM show. I promise we're going to talk malaria. And so let me just introduce my guest to you, Dr. Nana Yao Pepra, who is a medical epidemiologist with NMCP. He has to pronounce it properly for all of us. Dr. Akosia Jesse is program officer, also with the same organization, the National Malaria Control Program. We're talking about the 9th World Malaria Day 2016. So good morning to you.
Good morning.
First of all, please pronounce that well for me.
Medical epidemiologist.
Okay. What do you do then?
So it's basically about studying the distribution and determinants of health-related events. That is to say that, for instance, with malaria, you want to know why people are having malaria, who is having malaria, when are they having it. Then that should influence our public health actions. So basically look at distributions and determinants of those events.
Okay. So following from the explanation you've just given, what should we know about malaria?
Okay, so basically what is happening now is that we believe malaria is on the decrease. We still think that a lot of people are having this impression that malaria is increasing because when they have fever, they think it's malaria. But a lot of surveys seems to be giving us the opposite impression. What we are seeing now is that 2003, we had prevalence of malaria being around 75%. In 2014, demographic health survey shows that malaria is now around 27% prevalence. So it means that about 27 out of 100 suspected cases of malaria are actually malaria. So it's not every fever that is suspected of malaria which ends up being malaria. And we've also seen that there is a decrease in the malaria mortality over the years. In 2000, we were recording like 6,200 cases of malaria mortalities. In 2015, we recorded 2,130. And so we are seeing some achievements in malaria morbidity and mortality.
Okay.
Yes, and so it is all part of our celebration. You know, the World Malaria Day is on 25th April. And it's usually a day set aside for us to look at some achievements that have been gained, that has been made, and also to look at the challenges we have. Okay. Then we use that as a platform to discuss the way forward.
All right. So let me just ask Dr. Jesse, why do we seem to be, recording lower figures now? What has changed? What are we doing right? We certainly are doing something right.
Yes, as Doctor said, we are recording lower cases. Actually, the cases of deaths due to malaria, that has actually reduced. And even the cases that are put on ACTs, that's the anti-malaria, recommended anti-malaria, you know, the ACTs, that's artemisinin-based combination therapies. You've heard of the artemether, lumefantrine, the artesunate amlodipine. Yes, now the number of people who are being put on ACTs has actually reduced because now we are diagnosing right. Because now it's not initially that every fever is malaria, then it's being put on ACT. No. Now the policy is you have to test and then you treat. If it's negative, you don't treat for malaria. You investigate for other causes of the fever. So now what we are doing is we have tested, and those who are actually receiving the anti-malarials are truly malaria cases.
Okay.
Yes.
I've had a case where a doctor, and I thought it was a good thing that he said, the people who are looking through the microscopes to see if if the parasites exist, they are human beings, so they could make a mistake. So even if it's negative, I advise that you take the anti-malaria. Is that a good thing?
No.
Then the doctor too could make a mistake.
Yes, by saying that is not it.
Okay.
That is not.
So
it, no.
if it's negative, if no anti-malaria.
Exactly. If it's negative, no anti-malaria. And if truly the symptoms are pointing to other diseases, then you investigate for that other diseases. Well, there are certain instances where you could test and it's negative. Maybe you could check your procedure of testing. For instance, with the use of the RDT, there are certain manufacturer's instructions which goes with that. Maybe probably during that procedure, you might have faulted or switched from one step to the other. In that case, that could affect your results.
Okay.
Then you have to go back and check that again. Yeah.
Okay. So Dr. Nana, I'll prepare. There's this thing about, when you're not well, you go to the hospital, then they ask you, when was the last time you took anti-malaria? Have we stopped that as well?
Yes, we've not. Because it's part of the way of taking detailed history. You know, the RDT we are using, there's this rapid diagnostic test we do when you have malaria. And it's known that even after malaria, after you having an episode of malaria, within 28 days, you can still test positive. And so if that information is elicited from the client, it helps you to know that then you shouldn't do RDT. If there's a need to test for malaria, then you have to do microscopy. So that information is very important.
Okay. When you spray your room and you don't use the nets, are you safe?
What we are doing now is an integrated approach. We are not just doing just one intervention. And so we don't just advise you just spraying your rooms and not using your ITNs. And, you know, research is showing that the ITNs are really helping. And you see, people will have their own notions about it, but that is scientific. And thank God that the Demographic and Health Survey once again showed that about 70% of households have ITNs, and about 60% of children under 5 are sleeping under 8.
That's the treated mosquito nets.
Yes.
Okay.
And unfortunately, only about slightly above 50% of pregnant women are sleeping under 8. That's one of our challenges, because if you have it and you're not using it, then it means that we will not have the gains we hope to have from the ITNs. And if you look at the achievement we mentioned, it's you will realize that these are the preventive bits of the intervention is what is bringing up all these things. You understand? So, and currently we've added seasonal malaria chemo prevention, where in Upper West, children under 5, we are giving them some anti-malaria in the rainy season so that it will decrease the malaria morbidity and mortality in that region. We are hoping, and we evaluated that intervention, and the findings were good. We are hoping to add on Upper East this year. Okay. And then when we have enough funds, we add on Northern region.
Okay. So, Dr. Jesse, even as we get ready to observe the day, what should everybody know?
What we should know now is that the malaria deaths have actually reduced, and that we should test, treat, and track. That if you are tested negative for malaria, you don't take the anti-malarials. And then if it's negative, you investigate for further causes, causes of whatever you are presenting. And then also we have realized a lot of us Ghanaians, we actually owe the treated net, but we don't use it. You see, so you are number one. Even it's been observed that the net is being used for other purposes.
Okay, I don't use it for any other purpose.
Then you have, exactly.
So you just hang it, right?
Yes. So we actually have to sleep under the net. And then also for us health workers, as we give out the net, we ensure that we give proper education on the net usage. Yes. So
okay. I know that I have a second session with you, so we'll go into the little details of it. So what's going to happen on the 25th?
So 25th, the theme for the day is investing into malaria, ending malaria for good. We are trusting that with all this intervention we have and the donor support we have, we should be able to end malaria for good. And so on that day, we'll meet at La Palm.
At 9.
At 9 a.m. Okay.
Fortunately, it's also going to be part of Health Summit. But because it's our day, it's going to be reserved for malaria. And so we'll talk about malaria, we talk about achievement, and we look at the way forward in facing some of the challenges we have.
Exactly. We also have our partners coming in. There are other partners like the USAID supporting with the fight against malaria. So they will also be coming in to also showcase their areas of support, all towards ending malaria for good.
Okay, so can I say that some of the basic challenges will be the pregnant women not sleeping in the mosquito nets?
And not taking their SP. You know, when you're pregnant, you're supposed to take your SP.
So an SP represents?
SP represents sulfadoxine pyrimethamine.
Oh, okay.
That's an anti-malaria. So it's supposed to help them prevent malaria in pregnancy.
Okay.
Yes.
And how often should you take that?
So they usually take it after quickening. After quickening is when you feel the child moving. And so the doctor or the midwife will tell you when to take it, but usually it's after quickening. And they take it monthly. Now the WHO recommendation is that you take it up to delivery.
Okay. Yes. And the purpose is for you not to get malaria or the child?
not for you to get the malaria. And so you see, if you have malaria, there are consequences not only for you but to the child as well. And so if you prevent malaria in the mother, you are preventing the other consequences you have on the child.
Okay. So is it that the mothers, the pregnant women are given these drugs, but they don't take it?
There are a number of challenges from stocks, whether the hospitals have it, and some mothers thinking that they have adverse events when they take the drugs, so they don't want to take it. But I mean, we are advocating that if you really have to take it, if you are not part of the group, there are some group of people who are not supposed to take it, those who are GSPD. The doctors can identify all those things. So if they tell you are not part of the group that's supposed to take it, it's fine. Otherwise, then try and take it. Okay. Because it's going to be very helpful.
And I think it's good for people to also know, so that you can even prompt the doctor and say, oh, I heard that you're supposed to take this. Are you going to give me, or why am I not taking it? That kind of thing.
Right. Some pregnant women are not even aware they are supposed to.
That.
You see, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And
I may have been given, but I didn't know.
Didn't know. Okay. Yeah, this is it. And even probably they might even not take it at all, even if they are given. Exactly, because they don't know the benefits of it.
It's true. Yeah.
And even to add to what Doctor said, one of the challenges again is that when patients are given the medications, after a day or two and they feel well, they don't complete it. So it's also another challenging area. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But I think we should be able to overcome this challenge, because when you're pregnant, you're you're afraid of a lot of things. So whatever the doctor says is what you do, strictly. If he says finish it, so the container is done, you will do it. Yeah. All right. So, in wrapping up our conversation, finally, what will be your final words?
So, we want to end malaria for good. And for us to be able to do this, we should invest into malaria. We have to invest our time, our resources, and we have to get committed to investing into malaria. Basically, that's what we want to say.
All right. Dr. Jesse?
Yes, we are ending malaria for good. It is possible. So we call that all hands should be on deck, inviting everybody on the 25th of April, that is this Monday coming, to also help support us end malaria for good.
Okay. So, all right. I have a part 2 of the conversation, so I'll put all the questions that will come through following this conversation down, and I'll pass it on to you. But thanks for being here. Happy celebrations. We're happy that the numbers, we're not recording high incident, but may it remain so. May we continue, going down. That's Dr. Nana Pepra and Dr. Akosua Jesse. We've been talking about malaria, and they both work with the National Malaria Control Program. Thanks for your time. On my banner today, we're talking about Public Elections Regulations 2016. How often haven't you heard CI 91? It used to be another CI 72, which is no more. But what exactly is inside the CI 91? You'll love my conversation next. Stay with us. When I come back, is my banner here on the AM Show.